publishers using this workflow, and it's been a big time saver for them. Before we get started, I'd just like to touch on a little bit of history of Blanchard Systems. We are a systems. Mike, if you could advance the slide.
Actually, I just did. Did you see it?
Yep, I got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just a little lag.
Right. So Blanchard Systems is a software development and systems integration company. We were founded in 1992, headquartered in New Orleans, and we are the developers of Send My Ad, which is the cloud-based ad portal, and Virtual Publisher, which is a cloud-based magazine planning and production portal, both using a technology platform developed by us. And we are also the North American distributor for DALiM software, and we are also a shareholder of DALiM. And we have been providing productivity solutions to publishers and publication printers for the last 20 some odd years, and so we have a lot of experience in this area. So in a minute we're going to get started here, but just a few things to note in terms of the webinar today. That you'll find in the upper left-hand corner of the screen a zoom button. So if you want to be able to get a larger image of the presentation and demo, just click on that and zoom up to 100%. I also want to mention that for the Q&A session at the end of today's program, we will be answering your questions, but we would like you to submit your questions in writing. And if you just use the GoToWebinar control panel, and there's a question area, and you can just click on that and submit your questions, and we'll be answering them for you later in the program. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce again Mike Moscato. He's one of our senior techs, and Mike's going to walk you through how DALiM can help you create digital editions. Mike?
Thanks, Gary. Before we go into the slides, I mean, since the crux of the presentation today is centered around DALiM's Twist product, I'll just mention very quickly, Twist is an automated workflow product that's been around for, I have to think it's approaching maybe its 20th anniversary. So this is a pretty mature and very powerful product. I'm not sure we'll look too much under the hood today, but if we have some time and there's questions geared toward it, we can certainly do that. The specifics of our presentation have to do with generating PDFs for digital editions, and the kind of the hit list of things or reasons people want to do this is they're taking their files that have already been generated for print and they want to repurpose them without having to go back and start all over again at the creation. For a wide range of digital devices, usually tablets, maybe even some bigger phones, you want a more simplified file that's going to work across multiple platforms and not give you any issues. And the other requirement that seems to be very common is you still want to have searchable text in the files. The other common problem you'll see with files generated for print, especially if they're more complex files that may have had transparency flattening, is you'll often get those stitching lines that show up in them. And there seems to be some tablets that will show those, depending on which program you're in, some that don't, but obviously we'd like to have something that's consistent. Typically these files go out as RGB. If it's a print file, you want to crop it to the trim. Hopefully there's a trim box defined. And it's not uncommon to be supplied files that are either in a single multi-page PDF or just have a big bucket full of single pages that you have to deal with. So we hopefully want to have workflows that can approach this. Twist workflows, and you'll see I say they're not infinitely adaptable, but they're almost very flexible. I'm sure if I said infinitely, someone would give me a question in 2 seconds that proves that they're not. There's many ways to submit files. Most of what I'm going to be doing today is via browser. Twist can monitor FTP servers or just hot folders as well. And as I mentioned, we're going to bring in single pages or multi-page PDF. And if desired, you can throw in one file and get a variety of different files that are going to come out the back end. For the specific digital edition routine we're going to go over here, I just want to give a very quick overview of DALiM's history with this, because this is not a routine that suddenly appeared from thin air. There was a request probably, and my time is probably a bit off, but I think it was 4 to 5 years ago, from a customer who wanted to do this sort of thing. And at the time, it required a pretty complex workflow. And what we did is we would actually have to take in a file, break it apart into 2 parts. One part would keep the text. The other would keep everything else, meaning CTs, vignettes, and any vector objects. And once you have these 2 cleaned up files, they're laid on top of each other. It did work, but it would give you fairly long processing times, and you would sometimes get a problematic result because you might get something like some text that was interleaved into some transparent effects. What you're looking at is basically that workflow that we used to have to run. This is a Twist workflow, and you can see it was not a straightforward process. You would have a PDF come in, and after it had done a bit of cleanup, you'd see it gets to this place where there's like a fork in the road, right? One side would remove all the text and then flatten or rasterize the file, and then it would sit at this tool called merge because it's waiting for something. The other half would take the file and remove everything but the text, do some cleanup, and then when it gets to that merge tool, it would combine the 2 files into one. And lastly, output the final cleaned up, simplified PDF, and you're done. Now, the fact is that whole process of busting things apart and so forth is pretty processor intensive. If you look at what DALiM has evolved into now with this routine, that workflow you see there is the way it's done. And I think you can see that's a lot more simple and straightforward than the other one. What you see presented now in Twist in the tool that generates PDFs is an option that they refer to as the PDF CT vector format. Now, you should be aware that this is not some sort of special proprietary PDF. This comes out as a PDF 1.4. It's just that it's labeled this way because it's running a very specific routine to generate that PDF, essentially doing all those things that I pointed out in the previous workflow, but now in a much more streamlined and more, what's the term, maybe a more contained process. It doesn't have to do all of those other things that put quite a bit of load on a Twist server, and it would kind of double your pleasure because it was busting files in 2 and then having to merge them back together again. So why don't we look at how this stuff is done? The first thing I want to show you is just, first, let's define the problem. Now, this is a PDF that we got from a client a couple months ago to look at. And if you look at this, you say, oh, that's a nice looking PDF. But if we look at it in wireframe, that is a flattened PDF that will sometimes display that effect when you go to tablets. See all those stitching lines that, and again, I know I've played with this file. On some you will see those, some you don't. But what we want is a simplified version of that file that's not going to present any of these kind of problems for us. And if we look at this file, you might say, oh, that's just the same file. But if we take a closer look here, we'll see this is the file run through that Twist workflow to simplify things. And you can see that all of those tiled objects in the background are now gone. The other key to the sort of thing that we mentioned earlier is you want to still have searchable text. So if you say, well, we want to look for the word glamour, you can see in this simplified file that the text is maintained, but all the other graphic information has been flattened and simplified. One other thing we should point out, though, is let's say we search for another word, say the word formula. You'll notice it caught it down here at the bottom, but it didn't catch this big word formula sitting in here. So you might say, what's going on here? This thing doesn't really give us everything that we want. One thing to always keep in mind when you're dealing with these kind of files is that we're basically a slave to what's initially provided to us. So you can see in this file that the text down here, physician's formula, has already been converted to outline paths in the file that we started with. So you cannot generate, there's no sort of OCR in here, so it's not going to generate text from that. But you will see that even though that's a vector object, the twist generated file still maintains that high-res vector edge to it, so you don't get a rasterized look on something like that. So let's see how we actually run something through the twist workflow. What I just brought up is a browser-based utility that we run with Twist, and I'm going to use this to access one of several workflows I have. I'm going to use this one right here, first of all. And again, this is just a way to submit files to a workflow for processing. So what I'm going to start with is this is a 16-page, multi-page PDF, CMYK file, still has all the trim marks on it. So we need to crop it to trim and do all that simplify stuff. We're going to upload it to Twist. And if we watch it, watch what happens. You can see it immediately busted it apart into 16 different pages. And if we watch, you can see that as it goes through, any of these files that are in blue are waiting for all of his buddies or all of the partner files to finish up, because when it's done, it will recombine them all back together and give us one single file, multi-page PDF. You see it's done. And what I should have here now is, if you look here, Twist automatically generates a folder for me with the name of the workflow. I mean, you can see we have a nice, tidy PDF now. Now, if I was not doing a webinar and I was just a regular guy, I may not necessarily want to run through a workflow like that where it shows all the pages broken apart and so forth. But let's say I want to use that workflow that basically I showed you the picture of earlier, where it just does everything in a single file. I mean, in a single tool. I'm going to take the same page and throw it into this workflow. And while that one's running, I'll show you a couple of the key tools or features that are involved here in Twist. This is a client app that we use to administer a Twist server to create workflows, edit workflows, and so forth. And you can see that file we just sent in is processing. And notice it didn't bust it apart because I told it not to. Within the Twist editor, we have the ability to open any of these files up. And oh, I got the spinning beach ball of death right now. There we go. This tool in that workflow is basically doing all the dirty work for us. It's color managing it, because remember, we want to convert it to RGB. It's generating the final PDF. This little multi-page button here tells us that it's going to combine all those pages back together for us. And this is where we do all of our color management. So Twist has the ability to identify any RGB, CMYK, grayscale objects, and convert them to the desired color space we want to go out at. And in this instance, we want to go out as a sRGB file. And anyone who's familiar with color management knows that we're just defining source profiles and output profiles to do all this. And you'll also see that within this tool, after we do all that good stuff, this is the final file that outputs the PDF for us. And again, there's that format we talked about. And depending on what your requirements are, we can control the resolution of the files going out, all the compression settings, and anything else we might want to slap into the PDF, keywords, metadata if needed, all that good stuff. If we look, that job is already completed. And again, based on how I have set things up, you'll see that it threw it into a different folder based on the workflow name. You notice I got two very differently sized files. I had this one set, I think, for a lossless JPEG, and this one I think was set to do a high or something like that. The other thing that you will see happen, and frankly I think this might be a bit more common, is instead of someone just giving you a single multi-page PDF, it might be more common to get a bunch of single pages that have to be dealt with. So in this instance, I'm really going to do pretty much the same thing, but these are 8 different pages. And again, they're CMYK files, but I need to run them through, run our same CT vector routine, and then have them gathered up and combined. You'll notice now there's a tool in here that's called filter group. And again, we're not going to get too deep into the inner workings of Twist, but what that does is it's able to track the files that have been submitted. It knows how many there are, and then it will then combine them all together when we're done. And you can see here, we now have a single 8-page PDF generated. And one would hope, if we check it out, that there are no CMYK objects in it. There better not be. There we go. It's all RGB, and again, it was cropped to trim. Another approach to being able to submit files to Twist, and specifically to this kind of workflow, involves the use of an InDesign plugin that DALiM has come out with recently. If you look at what I've got up right now, this is just a very simple 10-page InDesign document. And you'll notice when I go to export it, I'm probably missing all sorts of fonts and so forth, but we'll let that slide for now. If you go into InDesign, though, under your preferences, you'll see this thing called Twist Link. What this is doing is it's allowing us to connect to the same Twist server through basically the same API that browser-based utility does that I just was working with. You notice I tested the connection. That's using the same credentials that I used earlier to log in. So if I'm ready to export this job, I go to this option, Export for Twist. Notice it gives me this same list of workflows that you saw me working with earlier. But beyond that, if I select this workflow, I can now basically control exactly what I want to come out of here and get processed through the workflow. For instance, let's say for the actual print PDF that I'm going to export, maybe I just want to use the file straight out of InDesign. Maybe I want Twist to normalize it to a PDF X1A or normalize it to an X4. Let's say for the sake of this test, we're going to just use the InDesign PDF. And you'll notice that I've also got in here options for different digital editions. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to make one for iPad and also for next issue. And what you'll see is, based on what I've got set up, the next issue option wants a lower resolution CT than the other one. So I should get two differently sized PDFs coming out here. And I'm going to tell this to don't do any downsampling, just keep things as they are. And I don't want to do any color management. Typically, we want Twist to do it. Although since I told it to use the InDesign PDF, I probably should have selected that, but it's too late. So when we hit that, if we go to our Twist editor, notice all these files showed up. Based on the workflow I'm using, it will either as I mentioned, either normalize to X1A or X4 if we tell it to. If not, it's going to let those go through, and now it's feeding through to these other workflows to make the digital edition for iPad and for next issue. And you can see those are all done. If we again bring up that folder we've been playing with, you'll see from InDesign, these are our print files. So these came out all as single pages. They didn't have to, but that's how we set it up. There's a digital edition for the iPad, and there's a one for next issue. And again, you'll notice, although these are the same pages processed almost identically, we have the logic inside the workflow to switch the resolution. So this one comes out, I think these were set for 100 DPI or something like that. I'm not sure anybody would do it, but for the sake of the demonstration, we just want to let you know that we can do multiple files out and also affect how those things get processed and have completely separate processing options. Now, I know a question I think is probably a fair question is, how many people are going to actually go into InDesign and have the entire book ready to output? I tend to think, I know from dealing with some of our publishing customers over the last few years, these things are usually done on kind of a story level or story-based. So it might be more common to run these files through in a, this story, that story, maybe gather all my ads or whatever, and basically have the entire book as single pages. So the issue then would be, all right, I've got all the files. They've been, maybe they came in over the course of 2 or 3 days, but I've got a bucket full of files that are ready to go. And really all I need to do is stitch them all together. Wouldn't it be nice to just have a simple drag and drop method to do that? Well, I wonder if we have a way to do that. It's a workflow that actually is running at a customer. Now, one of the things I'm looking at here is based on the file, I may or may not have to crop these to trim because maybe they were already handled previously. I'm going to say that I don't want to crop to trim, but I'm going to throw them all in here. And this is, I believe, just to confirm, this is, I think, 152 pages, yep, plus covers. And you'll also notice that they have varying naming conventions in them. So Twist has to be smart enough to sort through all those files and figure out how to order them properly. Because, who cares if you stitch them together if all the pages are out of order and the cover's in the middle and page 1 is, the 3rd page from the end. So you'll see, oops, here's Twist sucking all those files in. And what it's doing under the hood is the way DALiM and Twist deal with these sort of things in terms of being able to order things and organize them is we deal with regular expressions, so we can parse file names, pick out page numbers, and in this case even deal with files that are named, as you can see, CVs. The CVs don't technically have a page number. And it's going to sort through all these guys. And I'm not sure how the screen is updating here because I know as I watch it, I can actually see it kind of jumping through all these things. But yeah. Okay. So, maybe we could get the countdown here, but I'd say probably in about another 20 seconds, this whole thing's going to be done. And we're going to have a single multi-page PDF in order. In this case, I didn't crop it, but if I needed to, they would have been all cropped to trim as well. And hopefully they'll get deposited in the same area where everything else has been coming in. Now watch what's going to happen here. If you look in the upper, I think, right-hand corner here, you see this thing where it says selection. And
we don't see that, Mike. We're still seeing your twist screen.
Yeah, hang on a second. Yeah, you can, what's happening, and again, you may not be able to see it. I think I must have missed a couple of pages. Let's see. Yeah, because what this should do is it should group them and merge them all together. And actually, I'm not seeing that. I think I missed a file in here somewhere. But that's what happens when you do a live demo like this. Yeah, I think I missed a file because it has the way this typically works, it has a page count. And based on the page count, there's probably a file missing here that didn't group them all together. But I think that basically covers the majority of what we want to go over here. If there's anything you think I missed, Fred, let me know. Or if we have questions, we could go over questions.
We have a couple questions we can go over. The first one obviously comes from an existing Twist user. He's asking whether you use the web link variable indicating how many files were uploaded to drive the filter group tool. If so, is there a way to achieve the same thing via a hot folder submission method?
The first part of the question, the answer is yes.
You still there, Mike? Well, we may have lost Mike. He's still driving, but the answer basically is yes. You can do that. You still have to have a variable that lets Twist know how many files to expect. So if you're using it via a hot folder, typically Dalim has a concept called dynamic hot folders. So you could drop it, for instance, in a folder inside the workflow that has the page count on it, or if somewhere in the naming convention of the file the total page count is given, then it'll know how many to stitch together, how many files to expect before it releases. Hopefully Mike notices he's off right now, and I'm going to chat with him real quick. Yeah, let me know. And next question I got is,
I dropped, I think I'm back here, Fred.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah,
I did answer most of the question. If you just want to show that really quickly.
Yeah, the filter group tool is the tool that combines all these goodies. And in terms of knowing how many files to count, this is a variable it captures from WebLink. When you do the upload, it knows how many files were submitted. And so it knows when it has all the goodies to combine them. In fact, that's why that stuff got stuck earlier. It didn't get all the files.
I was saying based on hot folder submission, you would just have to have a naming convention or a dynamic hot folder name or some way to detect how many files to expect.
Yes.
That's the only thing necessary there. Kind of in par with that, actually, there was another question about if they'd be able to use FTP to submit files. And basically, Twist can monitor an FTP folder via the input files tool, as Mike's shown. You just give it the credentials, and it'll check an FTP site. And kind of same thing. You still have to be able to give it the variable to know how many files to expect, and something in the file name that it knows they all belong together, since they're not being submitted at once. Another question we had is, you sort by file name and then see more clearly what files are missing. Oh, somebody giving you advice on how to figure out what file's missing.
I bet I know.
Yeah, we actually, we actually do know. We actually can look because it is a stash folder. Mike can look at that. depending on the workflow, we have other ways to kind of look into the information as well. Depending on the workflow, we have a lot of customers that do that because they may have a file that doesn't get submitted accidentally, like Mike did, or it fails somewhere along the line.
I should have used this workflow actually, but
right. This is what I was talking about, a kind of a staging workflow that actually files them into a folder and lets you sort through the folder and very easily see what's missing.
The
it's a little
other
bit
thing
harder to follow during another webinar.
Yeah, I'll point out, that I mentioned earlier that there's lots of ways to do things in Twist, and I have, and Fred mentioned it. We did another webinar on this about a month ago. There's a lot of different variations on these workflows on how to do this sort of stuff, because depending on where the files are coming from, how they're submitted, whether you have a single Twist server or you actually have a cluster of Twist servers, the way you run your workflow is going to vary just a little bit. The basic tools to do all the goodies are the same, but there may be some slight tweaks you have to make to the workflow.
All right. Another question we have is, do companies like Zinio and NextIssue accept these files?
Oh, they definitely do. And
yeah. we have several of our publishing customers already submitting these files just like this to those different vendors. In fact, the workflows that Mike showed are kind of pieces of live workflows for submission to Kindle, for submission to NextIssue, Zinio, kind of all of the players.
Yeah, this one right here is being used at a couple of our bigger publishing customers right now. And again, everybody has slight tweaks they do based on their environment, but the core workflow that you see here is what is being run. This one is geared specifically towards customers who have multiple Twist servers, because it's a way to distribute the work across servers, but still be able to grab all the files when they're done and recombine them.
All right. And then I think the last question we'll go over is somebody's asking, what if there are problems with the files? And like I say, maybe interpretation issues, because we are obviously, we are changing the original file considerably to do these functions, and there is a possibility, although the routine works very well, there can be problems sometimes, a very small percentage. There is actually a workflow, as Mike's getting ready to show, where you can use a tool called PDF Compare and actually do a comparison between the file that's generated by Twist, pixel by pixel comparison between it and the incoming file itself as interpreted by Adobe and PDF Engine. So you can kind of get a notification and automated QC process to catch problems where it notices there's differences between the files per your specifications. Mike, if you want to add
there's a lot of different rules that you see within Twist in terms of triggering certain actions based on what happens. So if it sees gross issues, that might be considered an error. And so there's different actions that can be triggered based on what you see or what's detected in the file. And you can see here, huge errors, tiny errors. So it's kind of like how gross an error do you want to detect, basically.
Because there obviously will be differences if you're looking for very small things, because we're actually re-rasterizing the file and it is doing a pixel by pixel comparison. So anti-aliasing and things like that come into effect, and so you want to go up a little bit like that. But things you want to typically are going to be concerned with are going to be actual transparent objects and how they interact with objects below them, possibly changing or something like that. But like I said, we do have many large publishers already using this, and there's very, very few files that get reported to us with issues. And that was all the questions we had. So, Gary?
Maybe Gary dropped off too.
Yeah. Anyway, so I would like to thank everybody for joining us on our webinar. If you go to the Blanchard Systems website under our events page, you'll see a listing of all the webinars we're doing. We do technical webinars for our semi-ad and virtual publisher products, as well as all of our DALiM products, and we'll be also doing those on the Woodwing Enterprise and Elvis products soon as well. And so we have technical webinars that we do on a scheduled basis, as well as these sales-based webinars that we do monthly. So again, thank you for joining us. Hope everybody has a great day.
Yes, thank you very much for joining.